Okay, Steelers fans, you are going to love some of this gold we have harvested for you as the countdown to Steelers and Texans Super Wild Card Monday Night Football is upon us in this edition of the Noll Road. We'll give you 6 more reasons to believe Steelers are going to pull this off as home dogs against the Texans, punch their ticket to the divisional round of the NFL playoffs. We'll look at all the Steelers angles for you. Here we go.
To the corner of the end zone. Oh, for a touchdown!
All right, welcome in. I'm Gavin Dawson along with Newbear Lesniewski. Thanks for clicking on the video. Comment down below the number one reason you believe the Steelers are going to beat the Houston Texans. Please hit that like button for us. Be huge. It's the number one thing that helps us get distribution. And if you haven't subscribed yet, go ahead and consider that. We go long form at least 4 times a week, probably going every day here during the playoffs, right? Going every day till they lose. Can we get you on that, Newbear?
I'm in. Here we go.
All right, let's go. And let's start with, let me go ahead and add this to the stage. Texans anemic offense about to get a whole lot more anemic in the cold. C.J. Stroud stats in cold temperatures, 5 touchdowns, 3 picks, QB rating 87.5. I don't know if it's that dramatically worse, but I said last night, it's how we ended the show, like coming up from Houston into cold weather in Pittsburgh. I don't think there's any way that it doesn't have a significant impact on a number of the Texans players just dropping into that climate.
You know, everything I've read, because what's he going to say? Yeah, we're going to lose because it's cold and I suck. And what's he going to say? I'm not worried about it. He said the same thing going to Arrowhead in the Arctic Blast last year. But what I did notice is pretty much every time he's asked about playing in the cold, he talks about what? Oh, I played at Ohio State. You get used to it. You play where you play. You got to figure it out. But he always talks about how TV timeouts suck. Like you're on the bench, you're good because there's the warmers. You're on the field, you can have the hot hands or you're in the muff, or you can have guys are doing Vaseline and all kinds of different tricks. I love the big quarterback jackets with they're running over to the sidelines and stuff. But if you're just standing out there in the huddle with your guys to prove how tough you are, and you've been quoted time and time again saying that's when it's really tough. Like everybody knows you're cold. You haven't won when it's cold. Like you got to win to change that narrative.
And it doesn't matter where you grew up or how much you got used to it while you're at Ohio State. Your body is now acclimated to about 65 degrees and humid, and you drop into cold, dry weather, and it wreaks havoc on your body. I grew up in the Northwest and in Southwest Washington State. It wasn't the coldest place. I'm not comparing it to Pittsburgh. Like it rarely got down under 20 degrees, but it was consistently in the upper 30s and low 40s. And I spent the majority of the winter in shorts and t-shirts just because my body was used to it. Now, after 15 years living in North Texas, you get me under 70 degrees and I need a hoodie and some long johns, bro.
I love it, man. You got to get some cheeseburgers in you and fatten you up for the winter. You would love it here though too, because you get the wind. Right. You talk about it's always colder around water. Right. Like I remember growing up, my whole family's from Chicago. You go into the city, you go to a White Sox game, and like you take a blanket or two. You put the little hot pockets. Like you're doing the same thing these guys are doing out there on the field just to watch them. And you talk about long johns and all the different things these guys. My favorite thing is when a team tries to be tough guys and they come out. Who was it? Tennessee, and look at me dogging my own SEC when they came out shirtless and you know that there's something weird going on. But the little guy,
I actually advocate for NFL teams in this situation. Have the whiskey ready at halftime.
Yeah.
If your guys are shivering and they're hating life, get a little bit of buzz because it's the only thing that could save you.
I want a St. Bernard with a bourbon barrel around his neck. Let's update the mascot for a week, get him a hall pass. You break this stuff down, Ryan Clark and company, those mean-ass DBs on those real nasty Steelers teams. Everybody used to talk about how nobody was allowed to wear long sleeves except Troy. Like, Troy was the only one, the golden boy, USC Trojan, all the different things that, go into who he was to kind of do whatever he wanted to do. But everyone else is out there in no sleeves, playing no games, just knocking dudes' head off. And I think that's the thing. The guys in black and gold are going to be watching the breath come out of their face mask and be wanting to hear John Facenda say their names. The boys from Houston, you look up in the fourth quarter and all of a sudden there's 3 or 6 or 9 on the scoreboard. It's here we go again.
Okay, and speaking of again, there is more on this climate subject here as we're rolling with you on the Noll Road. Matt Couture pointing out dome teams over the last decade 1-14 when going on the road, and it is below 40 degrees.
Yeah, and the bigger thing again is like less than the cold. Give me wind, give me some other elements.
That's through you. Yeah.
Right. The cold is one thing, but like when you get the wind chill, like you're cold and you're standing there in a TV timeout, and then that wind hits as you're going to the line of scrimmage. Come on, dude. But that's the big variance thing with dome teams. Like temperature is one thing, but the environment is completely pristine. Like if I throw this route this way, it's 100 out of 100 times, no questions asked. You ask Chris Boswell about kicking into the different ends of this stadium, especially after what we saw last week.
So now we go to reason number 2 to believe Steelers are going to win. What's the spread right now? 3.5.
3.5.
Very comfortable betting on Pittsburgh, as I was last week. We were dead balls on that one. It was a massive Vegas mistake. I don't want you to gamble. I just want you to know I'm confident in the Steelers right now. Okay, this is a 2-parter right here. We go to Matt's stats here. Pittsburgh's given up an average of 73.3 yards rushing per game over the last 4 weeks. And then you can add to that. I mean, you can really feel their defensive line, their front has become more stout, getting Harmon back, putting more Malik Harrison in there, getting better. Keanu Benton's actually playing significantly better and more physically. He's not getting blown off the ball like he did week 1 against the Jets. That was embarrassing. But, I mean, beyond that, for me, it's the fact that Houston has not run the ball well all year. They're under 4 yards an attempt. It's 3.6 per attempt over the last 3 weeks. So they've actually been getting worse as the season has gone on. At today's Tomlin Tuesday press conference, he said against the Ravens, they actually chose the hill they were going to die on there in the fourth quarter, saying that's just what Lamar does to you. We got to put guys in the line of scrimmage and a lot of 5-man defensive lines. You don't have to do that. You do not have to do that against Houston. You can play them much more like you'll play a regular opponent, which should set them up well to limit the Texans' big plays, which is really their offensive identity.
This is going to be the toughest one for me to be all in on in terms of the belief and hey, this is where the betting money is going, and this is where my gut is telling. Just because for all the struggles that Houston has, they still do have that big playability. CJ Stroud will take the shots. They will be designed up. Like, will he take them? Will he trust them? Or will the Steelers be able to do some things like we talked about last week? They took some chances. They didn't all work. Highsmith, maybe we don't need to see him in coverage anymore. Herbig maybe needs to be on the field until he taps out, right? Like some of those kinds of things. But to your point about this running game, I mean, how bad do you feel for Joe Mixon? He was supposed to go in here and be a 300 carry guy where, you start talking about him building a potential fringe gold jacket case. And he, I mean, is he going to play again? Then you start talking about, Nick Chubb coming back from all his injuries. And he's always been a guy that I've had a soft spot in my heart for just because of how hard he works. And we talked in the preseason about him hitting his head on the ceiling in some of those workouts where he's like, is he just not, can he just not play anymore? Is this line that bad? And now you go back into the momentum thing where it's like, you have to believe if you're the Pittsburgh Steelers that your guys are better than their guys up front and you can handle Woody Marks without having to bring anything extra.
Yeah, I love it. And because Houston has struggled to the extent they have running the ball, you know how I feel about running the ball in the red zone. Like if you can't run it in, you are not going to be a good red zone team unless you got like 3 Randy Mosses. They are 30th in the red zone efficiency. I think it's 49% touchdowns for Houston, and that can be easily the way a game is won or lost with 1 field goal. But if you can stiffen up and they do end up having 4 or 5 drives into your red area and you only give up 12 or 15 points, that's a obviously tremendous advantage for the Pittsburgh Steelers. There's reasons to fear the Houston Texans, and I think it starts with their two edges. And as this week goes on, we'll look at reasons that you got to respect them. But this game lines up with enough Houston Texans weaknesses that I don't even feel like the Steelers have to play their best game in order to get the win here. Houston going on the road and having the shortcomings where they do provides enough matchups to be in your favor.
Yeah, and this is one of those things where, okay, you look at CJ Stroud and you go, yeah, you know what, he isn't Lamar Jackson, and you can play a certain way because they don't have Derrick Henry back there. But Stroud has shown a willingness and put himself in harm's way, got knocked out a few times, right? Where someone maybe teach him how to slide or dive forward, or otherwise just not give up on the play where he's given himself the ability to just get hit on the dome. But like he will go get you. He'll have those sneaky games where he's got 6 for 48. And you can't let that stuff take you away from the game that you want to play. If he goes and picks up a 3rd and 7 early, I don't necessarily feel like we need to just freak out and say, oh, now Patrick Queen or Peyton Wilson needs to spy that dude, or someone can't go chase and hunt to get home on 3rd and 7 the next time because we're worried about him breaking our back. He does it 2, 3, 4 times in a row, or that becomes part of a game plan where they sneak in a old school Elway Tecmo Bowl quarterback draw to maybe make up for some of those, goal line and short yardage struggles that they've had. Then maybe you go, okay, do we have to think about this? And that's also when they hit you with the pop pass over the top. So I almost want to be one of those. This is one of those games where they need to have the plan and then be stubborn about that plan, believe in that plan, unless for some reason Stroud is clearly showing a willingness to do more than just go sneak one of these or sneak in 3 or 4 carries here and there that make a difference in the game.
He is enough of an athlete where, most of these guys in the NFL today could beat you with their legs. They're just choosing not to because of the added injury risk that comes along with that. Okay, so there's 4 reasons, including, quite a few that were focused on where the Houston Texans offense isn't good. If you look at the Steelers side of the ledger here, I have a couple of things for you. I'd love to get your thoughts on this, guys. Leave a comment down below. Highest graded NFL offensive lines this season. This is according to PFSN's OL impact metric, and they're favoring the Steelers, by the way. I think they put Joey Porter Jr. as one of the top corners in the entire game this year, and he's had a good year. But they got the Steelers offensive line as the 3rd best in all of football, behind the Rams and the Bears. I mean, it has been pretty good. I guess I just haven't really stopped to ever consider that it might actually be one of the better ones in the NFL. But I mean, maybe right around the time that Broderick Jones found his way over onto the IR, things started to turn for the best here for the Steelers team.
Yeah, sticky situation with Broderick Jones. It's a lot to talk about. There'll be some meat on that bone. I mean, all off season, into the option, into his future, into everything that he had meant and could still mean for this team moving forward. The folks who've stepped in have really stepped up. And one of the big keys to this is knowing who you are. KYP, right? Know your personnel. And early and often, when Darnell Washington was a part of that conversation, and the extra offensive linemen and playing big personnel and ground and pound, we're just asking for them to do even more of that. We're asking for them to literally lean into that stuff, right? Still, with the 2-headed, monster of Gainwell and Warren in the backfield, and have some game plan to go in where 60+% of the play calls are that. Talk about being stubborn on purpose, with purpose, for a purpose. The KYP side of it is, early in the season, Aaron Rodgers did not trust Broderick Jones. He was a turnstile. And then as he gets better, you're still having to chip and protect him. Whereas now you're just talking about Rodgers playing on time and on target. You're talking about RPOs. Now, go back to the Myles Garrett. They basically, the Cleveland game was pretty much shortchanged because of everything they did to mitigate him not breaking the record, right? And we talked about that. We're not going to belabor that point. This is a really interesting thing because I don't think globally around the league, people think this Steelers offensive line is a great group. But I will tell you this, ain't too many people put Roquan Smith on roller skates and take him out of bounds and ruin his day, make him a meme, Zach Frazier, we talked about heading into the season, my opinion was going to emerge as the third best center, medal stand center in this league, Pro Bowler future, all pro future. I don't believe the PFFs of the world who have 10 centers rated ahead of him. You can miss me with that. McCormick is a win, and Fatanu is really stepping into his own and is going to get votes for comeback player of the year.
And I love this Dylan Cook story. Like, I don't know, after 5 games, do you just rubber stamp, hey, actually, we found one on a practice squad that used to be a Division III NFL or NCAA quarterback? You know, this dude goes to Montana State after 2 years failing as a quarterback, or was it Montana? No, it was the Montana Grizzlies. He's a failed jumbo quarterback, ends up putting on some weight, 6'6", 305, and he has been a very good left tackle for you. So just a huge win, I think, for the scouting department. I think he started his practice squad journey in Tampa, if I'm not mistaken. It was with some other team, but I mean, that's just like good fortune smiling upon you. And maybe the clock's going to strike midnight on this dude. But it's hard to succeed for even a quarter at tackle or any offensive line spot in the NFL. I don't think you're a fraud if you've done this through 5 weeks. So, you know, some good luck, some great scouting might have saved the day.
Who's the other one with the Rams? He's got 2 first names, David Edwards. But the most famous one's Lane Johnson, right? I mean, Kilgore to Oklahoma, right? Was a high school down in your neck of the woods in Texas. Right? He was a high school quarterback. And then ate his way into being Lane frickin' Johnson, all pro tackle. I mean, these stories are so great because, you know, as a dude who's had to run in order to make weight, as a dude who's had to put the parachute on or the spacesuit on, the garbage bag on in the sauna to get not get punished. Like, the opposite side of that is way more interesting. The side of that where it's Thanksgiving and people are sending you extra plates, trying to turn you into, you know, a future potential, not just a guy who's going to make a team, but a guy who's got a shot to really stick in this league.
Okay, I think we saved the best one for last year before we look at some of the other stuff that's been going down in the NFL today. And it's a pretty cool Aaron Rodgers stat. You know, when he was rock bottom dealing with that wrist, things looked really bad for Aaron Rodgers. I'm glad his story is going to have a better final chapter if this is it, you know, that he's not ending the season getting the crap kicked out of him and laying that stinker like he did against Cleveland. To bounce back and have that fourth quarter, it's magical, and it adds a meaningful portion of his Steelers story. But I didn't realize this, hasn't thrown an interception since November 9th, 7 games in a row without a pick. He has turned the ball over twice during that span, but this is kind of synonymous with what MVP Rodgers looked like with the Packers, where he'd give you 3 or 4 touchdowns a game, and it's just like he wouldn't throw picks for entire months at a time.
So Aaron Rodgers, I think it's like down to the decimal. Aaron Rodgers has 3 gold, bold, black, italic Pro Football Reference categories. Do you know what they are? So that means that he's like the all-time leader, right? So black ink is the Hall of Fame indicator, right? You lead the league in touchdown passes, it's black. You lead the conference if it's bold. If it's italics, it leads the whole league. The more of that stuff you have, whether you're talking about, you know, Babe Ruth versus Barry Bonds or, you know, Lamar Jackson versus Aaron Rodgers. So the 3 categories for Aaron Rodgers are sacks. He's been sacked more than anyone else ever, like 600 times, right? Quarterback rating, Lamar Jackson and him are both tied around 102 and change. And he's the lowest interception percentage in NFL history. And this is something this dude has always done. The thing that's interesting about it is, you know, you've talked about this being a thing that is almost too much on his mind in the playoff history, where the playoff game that week 18 became, and him throwing earhole balls and scud missile seam routes, and here comes Freiermuth, long live 88, right? Like, when you look back over Aaron Rodgers' history, the numbers aren't that much more. I think it's like 1.7 to 1.4, but there have been games where even more so, because he's never thrown more than 2 picks in a playoff game, right? And even more so than making that mistake in the interception is being afraid to make the throw that could lead to that. So when you're playing here against Houston, that same aggression that we saw when you had to have it, do you have one of those moments early where maybe you're able to get out in front of these guys and force them to play from behind?
Yeah, and I love that you brought that up because you need that element from Rodgers. You really do. You need him to be able to kind of throw caution to the wind at some point in the game. And I think we've seen enough of that this year to believe that even if you're 3/4 into a football game and it looks like the Steelers offense is in complete quicksand, he can totally turn that narrative on its head in a heartbeat. Maybe reason to give you confidence if, the first half doesn't go your way on Monday night. But the other thing about that is I would love to see this coaching staff empower that to try to get a hot start in the first quarter. Like, why are we waiting to the fourth quarter on this? You're only going to get the ball somewhere between 9 and 13 times in an NFL game. Why are you being so conservative that you can never score more than a touchdown in the first quarter? And then to more closely drill down, I would also say that second half really got turned loose when you became a balanced football team. And after all of this football that we've seen and how many times we've screamed into these microphones, you need to be a run play action team. Hot damn it, it's January now, and the roster is what the roster is, and Jaylen Warren and Kenneth Gainwell are two of your best 3 options, maybe 2 of your best 4 options at absolute most, if you include Freiermuth now, who's kind of coming on strong. But this is the identity you should go with: more aggression downfield with Aaron Rodgers, because you are grounding and pounding the hell out of the opposition.
Well, and especially if you're able to get them with motion and some of the pre-snap stuff into a place where you got DK manned up. Like, the fact that 4 is going to be back in the mix and you're going to be put in a position to take some shots. Like, if you get them, you got to take them. It doesn't matter if it's the first play of the game or the first play of the game-winning drive. Further, what I'm going to be really interested to see, I don't know if you caught this, but Pat was emotional. Freiermuth was emotional talking about how 8 and 88 have spent months working on the timing and turning the stick nod. I've been calling for the stick nod for months myself, and talk about screaming into microphones. I mean, it's one of my favorite things because I think Pat Freiermuth could be a 100-catch guy in this league on a team that plays that way, and he could be like any of the other your favorite tight ends up there, putting up numbers and being tight end 1 in fantasy football. He's that talented, and he's willing to put his body on the line and go up and make contested catches. And then at the beginning of this year, he showed how willing he was to do dirty work, and he was putting guys on their ass in the blocking game. What I'm going to be really interested in, every time the Steelers have turned a corner this year, you've heard that dialogue, that narrative. We had movie nights. Everyone went to Aaron Rodgers' house. We watched tape together. We've been working on this for months. We've been working on this one play for months. And so what I want to see is, after 18 weeks of 1-week scrimmages and trying to get on the same page, do we get a rail route? Do we get a sucker off of one of these screens where you got 8 looking at 88 like he's going to block, or Jonnu Smith 81 looking like he's going to block, and all of a sudden that dude actually slips up the sideline and nobody's running with him because they haven't shown that all year, right? Is this one of those things where some of the things that have just been a bit off, like finding Jonnu Smith down the field, or some of those things that we've been waiting for, like connecting with Pat last week, turn into integral parts of the game plan that you've been working on behind the scenes?
Yeah, hopefully they have, some things to spring, and they've built to this point. Tomlin likes to talk about how teams reinvent themselves every month, and you need to be playing your best football. And he was accountable, for the Cleveland game about how they didn't do good enough job in the strategy department. So I think if you are going to talk about the Steelers team going on a run, it's got to be with the best Aaron Rodgers, and it's got to be the best coaching job that we've seen this year.
What I would really like to see is Aaron Rodgers. Aaron Rodgers has always been famous for moving the running back to, people think it's just for the protection. Oh, hey, 52 is the mic, or someone's coming off this side, and you see the running back go from right to left or left to right. And oftentimes what he's really doing is clearing the throwing lane to the guy that he's identified pre-snap that he's throwing to, win, lose, or draw, because it's one-on-one and he trusts his guy. And Marcus Valdez-Scantling at the end of the Cleveland game, withstanding, this is something that he wants to build into that RPO stuff. It just hasn't worked yet. And so what I'm going to be really interested to see is there a set where you get, if they play shell and they're double teaming DK and you don't get that one-man shot, but you run him on a deep post, a deep over, and you move Gainwell over before the snap, and he runs the rail route behind that because they're just expecting him to step up and put his face in the fan. I think there's so much game within the game manipulation type stuff that they've been almost waiting and saving, because you finally saw some of that shit last week when there was no choice but to let the cat out of the bag.
All right, buddy, we got a few minutes to go. There's your 6 reasons to be optimistic. Please leave a comment down below. The biggest story here midweek is that the Ravens have fired John Harbaugh. Diana Rossini saying he was refusing to make any adjustments to his coaching staff, including Todd Monken, refused basically to fire people to help keep his job. But Ian Rappaport said he had lost portions of the locker room, including but not limited to Lamar Jackson. A lot of different ways you can talk about this. I would like to just keep it Steelers-centric. Is this a good day for your future chances of winning the division? The Ravens moving on from John Harbaugh?
I think so, because there's going to be more change from here. Like, they made some really interesting moves. They had some unfortunate injuries. And I'm not just talking about Kyle Hamilton, which I know I've been going back and forth with some folks in the comments about, but, Matabuke and some of the different things that this was not a vintage Ravens team. And that's why they made the move for Louis Gilman. And that's why they reinvented themselves throughout the course of this year. And I think that's one of the things that the Harbaugh, the end of things, if things were good, they were never, nothing ever ends good. If it was good, it wouldn't end. It would just go on forever. That's why we were chanting Fire Tomlin a couple weeks ago, and we need him to keep this thing going in order to not have that rear its ugly head again, because it's that thin of a margin when the message has been the message, because the standard has been the standard for 18, 19 years. Right now, it's damage control. Harbaugh said 7, it's up to 9 teams, which there's only 6 vacancies. So that means there's at least 3 teams who are thinking about firing their coach if they can get John Harbaugh. And in addition to that, Lamar Jackson is from Miami, and there's a lot of talk about what they're going to do this offseason, and there's a lot of talk about his contract. And so if Bisciotti is rumored to truly be the one who made this call and couldn't be talked out of it, is it because Lamar had a problem with Harbaugh, or is it because Lamar had a problem with Monken, or is it because they have a problem with Lamar? Like, all that stuff is literally on Twitter if you want to go down any one of those rabbit holes.
But if they came to you and you were the Ravens front office ownership, if Lamar is, I guess Lamar is his own agent. If Lamar came to you and said, hey, you have to let Harbaugh go or I'm going to demand out, they made the right decision today, didn't they?
Yeah. Well, I mean, it's been a minute since they looked like the class of the division and a team that could rise to be the cream of the crop of the AFC. And then you go, well, wait a minute.
Mark Andrews catches a ball. They might have done it last year.
So then you go, wait a minute. Weren't we just talking about all the people and all the ways that Lamar Jackson has been let down? And the common denominator right now is there's a lot of noise around their 8. And in order for him to get back to being great, there had to be a change.
Yeah, I certainly understand that. It's tough decisions that you have to make. It is amazing how similar that the two are between Tomlin and Harbaugh, and I'm sure there's some Steelers fans that are envious that the Ravens are going to get a fresh start. But what both of these guys did is effectively raise your regular season floor, and maybe Harbaugh was better at it because he had the MVP quarterback, but what they get you is really good regular season success and then disappointment in the playoffs. And at some point, I think for both organizations, if you're not getting the postseason success, ultimately the regular season success doesn't even mean much. I mean, we're both old enough to remember the 90s and the Atlanta Braves. They kept getting to the World Series, and at some point Atlanta decided they weren't even impressed by that because they were so disappointed that the Braves weren't winning enough of them. So, I think ultimately when the Steelers move on, it's going to be hard, and there's going to be a lot of uncertainty about, can you find another head coach that can give you this level of regular season success? But you got to be you got to think it's worth it to risk that in order to try to get the bigger, more ultimate prize.
I love that you brought up the similarities between the two of them. Only Curly Lambeau and Papa Bear George Halas faced off against each other more than these two guys. They're both going to be gold jacket guys. They're guys that you can't tell the history, the story of the NFL without their names attached to it. And what's really kind of insane, if you think about it, is the same way we were talking about the Rooneys and the Maras, and the best thing for Tomlin, if it isn't Pittsburgh or TV, being Jackson Dart and that ready-made defense in New York. I mean, you could argue that the exact same thing is true for Harbaugh. You go leader of men, you go build a staff, you go rally around the young talent, and you go hunt on the other side. I mean, it feels a lot like what it felt like when Lamar came in. And don't forget, Harbaugh wanted to be stubborn because he had won with Flacco and he wanted to be loyal to Flacco. And Lamar, the beginning of those things and some of the Greg Roman stuff, and is he a real quarterback? And now he's a 2-time league MVP that has earned the right to stay up late and play video games and go hit up a food truck.
Great stuff. It's Dawson and Newbear here on the Noll Road. If you can hit that like button on your way out, subscribe, maybe even the bell button, never miss when we upload or go live. I'd love to go live with you during the playoff game, give some live reaction, have a little watch party with the roadies. That'd be a lot of fun. We'll update you on our plans and continue to look at this matchup. Until next time, we'll see you here on the Noll Road.